What if I told you that a single Belgian engineer invented a suspension system so advanced that it made a family car handle like a race car, yet ride smoother than a Rolls-Royce? Sounds impossible, right? Yet, this isn't fantasy. It's the story of Paul Majes, the visionary engineer who redefined the way cars move, turning ordinary hydraulics into automotive art. Picture this. The year is 1955, the Paris Auto Show is in full swing. Reporters and automotive enthusiasts from across Europe crowd the exhibition halls. Amid the gleaming chrome and polished paint of every new release, one car draws more attention than all the others combined, the Citroën DS. The journalists gather around, skeptical but curious. The car is loaded with 4 passengers and heavy luggage, simulating the worst-case scenario for any suspension. Most cars would sag under the weight, lean as the driver turns, dive under braking, or squat when accelerating. But the DS does something extraordinary. It doesn't. Not an inch. Its ride height remains perfectly level. Then the driver pushes it harder. Accelerating aggressively, the DS corners flat, holding the line like a professional racing car, while the passengers barely feel a thing. One British journalist described it as watching magic. But this wasn't magic. It was Paul Majes' hydropneumatic suspension, a system decades ahead of its time, influencing modern air suspensions across luxury cars and supercars even today. To fully appreciate how revolutionary this was, we have to understand the world of car suspension in the early 1950s. Automotive engineers were trapped in a compromise. Want comfort? Soft springs. But soft springs meant the car would sway during cornering, dive under braking, and squat under acceleration. Want performance? Stiff springs gave sharp handling, but every bump and pothole became a jolt, punishing passengers. Every car was a compromise, and nobody had solved the fundamental problem. Can a car corner flat, ride like a cloud, and adapt to load changes, all at the same time? Enter Paul Majes. Born in 1908, Majes' early career was far from glamorous automotive labs. He worked on industrial hydraulics, gaining an intimate understanding of fluid dynamics, pressures, and mechanical resilience. By 1945, he joined Citroën, bringing a radical perspective. Where others saw metal springs and mechanical dampers, Majes saw fluids, pressure, and controlled motion. The challenge he took on was monumental. Design a suspension that maintained constant ride height regardless of load, eliminated dive under braking, resisted squat under acceleration, allowed the car to corner flat, and delivered comfort rivaling luxury sedans like the Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. At the time, even achieving one or two of these was considered an engineering miracle. Majes wanted all of them simultaneously. His solution was audacious. Instead of conventional steel springs, he proposed hydraulic pressure as the core of the suspension. Each wheel had a hydraulic cylinder connected to a central high-pressure pump. As the load on the car changed, the system would adjust fluid pressure automatically to maintain ride height. But there was a catch. Hydraulic fluid is incompressible, so a purely hydraulic system would make the ride harsh, jarring every bump into the cabin. Here's where Majes' brilliance came in: nitrogen gas. He designed a spherical accumulator, a metal sphere divided by a flexible diaphragm. One side contained high-pressure nitrogen, the other hydraulic fluid. When the wheel encountered a bump, the fluid compressed the gas. The gas acted like a progressive spring, soft on small bumps but increasingly stiff under heavy loads. The result? A suspension that was adaptive, smooth, and performance-oriented, all at once. But Majes didn't stop there. He designed mechanical height sensors for each wheel, linked to valves. If the car's body dropped below the set height, fluid was pumped in. If it rose too high, fluid was released. The system responded in under 2 seconds. Operating pressures reached an astonishing 2,500 psi, comparable to aerospace systems of the era. The road to success was far from smooth. Early prototypes failed spectacularly. Seals burst, pumps overheated, and skeptics whispered that the system was too complex, too delicate. Executives debated scrapping the project. But chief engineer André Lefebvre had faith in Majes and gave him resources to persevere. Majes worked tirelessly, testing on Belgian cobblestones, French mountain roads, and even the Sahara Desert to simulate extreme conditions. Each failure became a lesson, each redesign a step closer to perfection. By the Paris Auto Show of 1955, the DS emerged as a revelation. Its aerodynamic design, with a drag coefficient of just 0.36, was futuristic. But more astounding was its behavior on the road, cornering flat at speeds that would tip conventional cars, accelerating without squat, braking without nosedive, yet riding with the comfort of a high-end limousine. The system could even adjust ride height for changing conditions, lift the car to tackle rough terrain, or lower it at speed for stability. The response was electric. Orders for the DS poured in, 12,000 on the first day, 80,000 by the end of the week. The press hailed it as revolutionary. Detroit, on the other hand, scoffed. GM, Ford, and Chrysler dismissed it as unnecessary complexity. Implementing it would render billions of dollars in conventional suspension technology obsolete. Yet, Majes continued refining his masterpiece. In 1957, he improved the height corrector. By 1959, he introduced a load-sensing brake valve, essentially a mechanical precursor to ABS decades before electronics made it standard. The 1965 generation added dual-circuit hydraulics for safety and durability. In 1967, Citroën even integrated speed-sensitive power steering with the suspension, decades ahead of competitors. The performance specs were staggering. The system could cycle through full suspension travel 5 times per second. Response times were under 5 milliseconds. Operating pressure of 2,500 psi required only 3 horsepower from the pump, and the system added just 65 pounds to the car compared to traditional suspensions. Rolls-Royce licensed the technology for the Silver Shadow in 1965. Mercedes-Benz experimented with it, Maserati implemented it in the Quattroporte 2, and even BMW studied the patents for their luxury sedans. The Citroën SM of 1970 combined this suspension with a Maserati V6 engine. The result? A supercar with the poise of a limousine. The car lowered itself at speed for stability, lifted itself for clearance, and cornered flat like a race car. Passengers felt nothing but effortless motion. It was a perfect union of comfort, performance, and technology. Despite its brilliance, hydropneumatic suspension remained niche. Cost, complexity, and conservative automotive culture limited its spread. American automakers experimented but rejected it due to maintenance concerns. The 1973 oil crisis shifted focus toward lighter, simpler cars, making advanced hydraulic systems a hard sell. Yet Majes's influence endured. He proved active suspension was not only possible but practical. His work inspired the Lotus Formula One active suspension systems of the 1980s, modern air suspension in Range Rovers, Mercedes S-Class, and Audi A8S, all descendants of his original concepts. McLaren studied Citroën patents to inform their proactive chassis systems decades later. Paul Majes retired in 1973, having amassed over 100 patents, passing away in 1981. Yet, every modern suspension that maintains ride height or adapts to conditions carries his DNA. From Rolls-Royce to McLaren, from luxury sedans to supercars, his vision persists. Majes didn't just invent a suspension, he created a philosophy. He demonstrated that comfort and performance aren't mutually exclusive, that complexity can solve impossible problems, and that a single visionary could outthink an entire industry. His hydropneumatic suspension is a masterclass in elegance. Complex enough to solve the hardest engineering challenges, yet practical enough to produce reliably. Today, every luxury car gliding over rough terrain or cornering effortlessly owes something to Paul Majes. He challenged convention, showing the world that individual genius could triumph over corporate conservatism. His story reminds us that innovation often comes from unlikely places, driven by curiosity, passion, and relentless problem-solving. So the next time you experience a car that balances performance and comfort flawlessly, remember Paul Majes, the engineer who turned hydraulics into poetry and imagination into reality. His legacy is not just in patents or technology, but in the very philosophy of modern automotive engineering. And who knows? The next revolutionary technology may already exist somewhere, dismissed as too radical, too complex, just like Majes's hydropneumatic suspension once was. If you loved diving deep into automotive history, hit that subscribe button for more stories of genius that changed the world. And share in the comments. Which forgotten car technology do you think deserved more recognition? Let's celebrate the hidden geniuses shaping our future, one brilliant invention at a time.